Hey, welcome to another episode of Dave's Imaginations. Today, we're going to recap our game from Thursday, February 9th. Oh, we covered a lot of ground, a lot to go over. Stay with me. So we started our evening. Recap. It's the beginning of the end as our adventure parties. They traveled to the far north, the Sea of Ice, and confronted Orthator, learned about the Drakhorn, and learned that it was being used to summon dragons, and that the Cult of Dragon was up to nefarious, that there's two factions, one that was wanting to turn dragons into Dracoliches, but the prevailing one was Sovereign Salrajin that was hoping to bring back Tiamat, and that is what is going on. And so our adventurers had come back to Waterdeep and met with the blacksmith, Vajra Safar, who told them, hey, you need to go and find these dragon masks and destroy them. And so they went to try to catch Narrowvein and Truth, but Narrowvein and Truth slipped through their fingers, and they learned that the other dragon masked dragon had already been recovered. And so they went back to Vajra Safar, who said, well, maybe you can find a way to destroy the dragon mask. Sneak in, find the mask, and destroy him. And to do that, they needed to get the shell of a flail snail that they believe that they grind down and make some sort of explosive to blow up these masks. They did. They went to the high moor and found a snail and defeated it, got its shell, and then went to the town of Soubar, where they cleared the were-rats out, and they were able to use the mill at Soubar to grind down the shell into the powder. They have 5 bags of powder for the 5 dragon masks, and they had this, and this is where they started their evening, as they were just done in Soubar, and they're now heading toward the Well of Dragons. To do that, they needed to skirt the Forest of Worms and go between the Forest of Worms and Trielta Hills as they are on their way to the Well of Dragons. And from there, from Soubar to the Well of Dragons was going to take like 7, 8, 9, 10 days to travel. So they went along the Forest of Worms, Trielta Hills, and followed the Trielta Hills to the Forest of Worms. Each day I rolled for a random event, and sure enough, day one, I said, there's no way there's going to be a random event. Super unlikely. I had a natural 1, and I rolled a natural 1. What do you know? I rolled a natural 1. So they had their first encounter. Now, this is winter. It is the middle of winter in the Sword Coast, and this part of the region, there's plenty of snow, and so they're tracking through the snow-covered fields, and they came across a wooded area where they heard a screeching, and that screeching turned out to be a wounded griffin, a fallen griffin, and his rider was dead in the tree. And so the party went and mended this griffin and tied this dead griffin rider on its back and sent it on its way, healed up the griffin somewhat, and then sent it on its way. And then from there they went to Trielta Hills. And Trielta Hills I described as like a Hobbiton, right? Where they had these hills with underground houses with big stones as doors, but all the homes were abandoned, as this place has been war-torn with war. And as they traveled on, and we rolled again, and sure enough, they had another random encounter. This time I said it happened in the town of Hardbuckler in the town of Hardbuckler, where this town was war-torn, all in ruins. But in the middle of town there was three gnomes just sitting there, lost, shell-shocked, just staring at them in disbelief, and just said, kill me, because what does it matter? As they watched our adventures come through. But as our adventures started to come through, a party they could see coming into town was a wagon train. And it turned out this wagon train was coming from the town of Hill's Edge, and they were full of wounded. It was a medical train of sorts. and a 20. I rolled for 20 horses, so that was a long train of all these wounded who were being shipped, being carted back to Baldur's Gate. And Barkworm came out of hiding and went to talk to one of them, and the person explained to him that the front, if it was between Hill's Edge and the Well of Dragons along the Skull Gorge, right? And this whole area is where the massive battles were taking place, the battles between the agents of the Dark Queen, the forces of Grumpsh, the Red Wizards, the dragon cultists, and orcs and goblins and giants and hobgoblins, all these against the allied forces of the Sword Coast. So, with that information, they decided to not go directly to the Well of Dragons, following the reaching river to the Skull Gorge and staying north, that they would go south to the front. The Allied forces had their base of operations was at Hill's Edge, so they would go there and check in with the General Tolfide. That was a cameo. A nice return to way back when we first started. General Tolfide was at the base of operations in Hill's Edge. And so they traveled to Hill's Edge, and not only was Tolfide there was also a couple agents from Harper's, and so Barkworm was able to talk with them and gather some information, as well as they learned that the Vajra Safar, the Blackstaff, was there herself. And they went and talked with her, and that she said that the agents of the Allied forces of the Sword Coast had an agent in a town called Ladydub, the ruined town of Ladydub, which is certainly the base of operations for the Dark Queen and Grumpsh, and so they have an agent in Ladydub singing at the Dire Dragon Inn, and that they were to ask for the Slayer Drufi, or the Muse of Quitaz, or Karnak the Mystic, and you'll be asked for payment. And then the Vajra Safar, the Blackstaff, gave her this crystal clear diamond the size of her palm, and said, give this as payment, but if you pay it directly toward the Slayer of Drufi, or Music Quitaz, or Karnak the Mystic, that you should have the female give it to it. Otherwise, give it to one of your males and have them give it to the female, as this person that your contact will be accompanied by a female half orc. And so anyway, and also before they left, the Vajra Safar, the Blackstaff, said, you might want to go in disguise. Oh, and by the way, in that town there is a wizard's tower, and in that wizard's tower there is a teleportation ring, and the Blackstaff is able to teleport them right into Ladydub. Now, she hasn't done this herself, and she doesn't know the state of the teleportation pad, and so there's a little risk there. And they should probably go in disguise, and our adventurers would have access to cultist uniforms as well as Red Wizard of Thay uniforms. And so I think everyone took on cultists except for Barkworm, our wizard, right? Took on the Red Wizard robes. And with that, they got a long rest, and they started off the new day, and they took the teleportation pad into Ladydub, and heavily deep within enemy territories. This Ladydub is right next to the Well of Dragons, and they're going to try to figure out how to get into the Well of Dragons through their contact at Ladydub, at the Dire Dragon Inn. So they make their way. They get into the teleportation ring, and they make their way across Ladydub to the Dire Dragon Inn. They get into this inn. It's a crowded inn, all sorts of people there. And as soon as they walk in, they spot right in front of them is Narenvain, the wizard they chased off. The wizard that was Rider of Truth, that they chased off just a few sessions ago, was sitting right there. Hadn't noticed them yet, as they're in their disguises, and many of them wearing the masks of the dragon cultists. So immediately Barkworm goes and sits in the corner, while the rest of them go talk to the bartender as instructed. Talk to the bartender and ask for this Slayer of Drufi, Muse of Quitaz, and Karnak the Mystic. And finally, after naming all three names, the bartender says, "Fine, you will need payment," and so they show him that they do have the payment, and she said, "Well, we're gonna go to this back room, and I'll have them come in." And it turns out they recognize that this person that their contact is none other than one of my former characters, Yagoff, and his lady companion, Wheezy, the half orc. And they're both a couple bards, and they're singing at this inn. And so after a while, they Yagoff and Wheezy get done with their performance, and they go to the back room and they meet up with our adventures. Yagoff gives a fortune telling, and in that fortune telling, he explains to him how there is a secret entrance to the Well Dragon, tells them the location of this, and so giving them the information they need. And now it's still pretty early in the morning. That was quite a crowd for early in the morning for the Dire Dragon Inn, and yet there they were. Maybe it was the third shift getting off the ship. I don't know, right? But they had this information. They brought in the mystic who tell the fortune. Now was able to tell some amount of fortune. He held the hand of Christiana and could tell that she had some blood infusions, and Wheezy didn't really like him holding her hand, but that was all kind of in fun. And ultimately, the party was able to get the information they need. They left. Another thing while they were in there, in addition to having Narenvane sitting at that table with the other cultists and red wizards, was they found a dragon wrangler was talking to a couple high-level red wizards, and they found that of interest as well. This dragon wrangler had like 6 dragon wormlings that he was able to get more, and so the party found that a little bit interesting as well. But they moved on. They left the inn. They regrouped, and now that is where we entered our night, as our adventurers are about to go find their way into the Well of Dragon. Now, because this is we're approaching the end, we're gonna have to skip a week because one of our players is out next week, which really puts us at risk. Actually, 2 of our players are gonna be gone next week. That's why we skip. We usually don't skip for 1. Sorry, we usually don't, right? But we had 2 people that are gonna be gone next week, and so we're gonna skip next week, and hopefully we'll be able to play in 2 weeks. And but real life is crowding in on us because there are circumstances that in March could really delay us, and hopefully we can find the end of this adventure. But I hope so. I wonder what you guys think. Hopefully that everyone's finding this a priority, and in these weeks off, what are we going to do? If you have an idea of something you might like to do, put it down in the comments. If you have an idea of how we're going to handle going into this Well of Dragons, we learned through intelligence that there's some 100 dragon cultists within this Well of Dragons, and then on top of that there's dragons, and on top of that there's red wizards, and what are their forces? And they learn that there's some ritual they're going to be doing to try to bring back Tiamat, and the master in there, and they need to find these masters to blow up those masters to prevent this. All the while they would like to somehow rescue Gloin from the 9th hell, from Avernus, but Yagoff warned them that to success might depend on a failure, whatever that means. What do you think that means? Put it down in the comments. I appreciate it. Put it down, and while you're at it, while you're down in there, hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate it. And others, it's gonna be 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 9 plus 14 is 13, right? 9, 14, 23rd. 23rd. I think that's the next date. I think we're going to be back, or targeting. So who knows what's going to come up on the 23rd. Hopefully we can meet that week, because after that, it's February. So we're going to be into March, and life gets crazy in March. So we'll have to see. Hopefully we can get our game in on that Thursday. Otherwise, we might have to look for another day outside of Thursday to do this. Anyway, really exciting. We're going to get there soon, and the end is near. And what will happen? Will our adventurers be able to save the realm from the return of Tiamat? See you in a couple weeks. Take care.